Picture the Nile at sunrise, the most important river in the world, the reason Egypt even exists. Every year it floods and leaves behind the black, fertile soil that turns dead desert into farmland, and everything grows from there. Fishermen working the banks, women filling their jars, an entire civilization that owes its life to this water. And then, in a single morning, it turns to blood. The fish float up dead. The stench rolls through the city. People are digging in the sand just to find something to drink. And standing over all of it is a man with a staff who told Pharaoh this would happen. This is the opening move in the strangest war ever fought. A war where God never raises an army and Egypt never wins a round. Because turning the Nile to blood wasn't random, and it wasn't God losing his temper. Egypt worshipped that river. They had a god for it. And God went after it first, on purpose. This is round 1 of 10, and every single one is aimed at a god Egypt was counting on to save them. The story starts with a demand. Moses and his brother Aaron walk into the most powerful court in the world and deliver a message from God. Let my people go. And Pharaoh, who is worshipped as a god himself, just laughs. Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go. Hold on to that line, because it's the question this whole story is about to answer. Who is the Lord? Pharaoh has genuinely never heard of him. He's got an entire pantheon of gods, the sun, the Nile, the sky, the harvest, and he is not about to bow to some slave god he's never met. So he doesn't just say no, he makes their lives worse. He orders the Israelites to keep producing the same number of bricks, but now they have to go find their own straw first. The people who cried out for rescue are suddenly suffering more than before, and they turn on Moses.
Here's where it would be easy to give up. Moses obeyed God, and everything got harder. But God wasn't caught off guard. He tells Moses exactly what he is about to do, and why. This will not be a quiet, behind-the-scenes rescue. God is going to make himself impossible to ignore. He says it plainly. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them. That's the mission statement. Pharaoh asked, "Who is the Lord?" And God is about to answer, not with an argument, but with 10 devastating demonstrations aimed straight at the heart of everything Egypt trusted. It begins at the water's edge. The Nile was the lifeline of Egypt. Every harvest, every meal, every drink depended on it. So they worshipped it. They had a god of the Nile. To Egypt, that river wasn't just water. It was life itself. Which is exactly where God strikes first. By this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that is in the Nile, and it shall turn into blood. The river turns to blood. The fish die. The water rots and stinks. The one thing Egypt trusted most to give them life is now full of death. And notice the reason God attaches to it. Not so I can hurt you, but by this you shall know that I am the Lord. Every plague comes stamped with that same purpose. This is God introducing himself. And he doesn't stop. The plagues roll in, one after another, and each one lands on a different Egyptian god. Frogs swarm up out of the Nile, and Egypt worshipped a frog-headed goddess of life and fertility. Now life is crawling over everything they own, and they can't make it stop. Then gnats. And here something breaks. Pharaoh's magicians had been copying the miracles, keeping up appearances, saving face. But at the gnats, they stop cold and tell Pharaoh the truth to his face. This is the finger of God.
Even Egypt's own religious experts can see it now, but Pharaoh won't bend. So it escalates. Swarms of flies, then the livestock die, striking at the sacred bulls and cows they held holy. Boils erupt on every body in the land. Hail hammers down and flattens the crops. Locusts devour whatever the hail left. And then darkness. A thick, suffocating darkness that lasts 3 full days. Sit with that one for a second. Egypt's greatest god was the sun, and God simply reaches up and switches it off. For 3 days, the sun god is powerless, and the mightiest nation on earth just sits there in the dark. And through all of it, one detail keeps quietly repeating. Where God's people lived, in the land of Goshen, the plagues didn't touch them. No flies, no hail, no darkness. God was drawing a line down the middle of the country, showing everyone exactly whose people belong to whom. And don't miss the mercy buried in the escalation. God doesn't wipe Egypt out in a single night. He gives Pharaoh warning after warning, chance after chance to relent. Between almost every plague, Pharaoh is offered an off-ramp, and every time, he refuses it. The judgment is real, but so is the patience. God keeps knocking long after most of us would have walked away. Now here's the single line that unlocks the whole thing. When God finally explains what all of this was really about, he says it without flinching. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. There it is. This was never really about weather or insects or frogs. It was a war. Plague by plague, God was walking down the entire lineup of Egypt's gods and dethroning them one at a time. The god of the Nile, the goddess of the frogs, the gods of the livestock, the god of the sun, and finally Pharaoh himself, the man who claimed to be a god on earth, watching his kingdom crumble around him, powerless to stop a single day of it.
The real reason for the 10 plagues wasn't cruelty, it was revelation. God was answering Pharaoh's question, who is the Lord, by exposing every rival Egypt had put its trust in, and proving not one of them could stand in front of him for even a moment. But there's a deeper layer here, and it's an uncomfortable one, because as the plagues went on, the text keeps saying Pharaoh hardened his heart. Over and over, he sees the raw power of God, and he digs in harder. That's the warning the story hides in plain sight. Every time we see the truth and refuse it, we grow a little more resistant to it. A heart never hardens all at once. It hardens one no at a time. And notice what God said he wanted through all of it. Not destruction. He wanted them to know him, to know that he is the Lord. In Hebrew, that word know isn't about collecting facts. It's the kind of knowing that reshapes how you live. God wasn't flexing his power for the fun of it. He said so himself. For this purpose I have raised you up, to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. He wanted the whole world, Egypt included, to finally see who was really God. And this is where the story turns towards something far bigger than Egypt. Because there was one more plague still coming, the worst one, the death of every firstborn son. And here's the shock. Even God's own people weren't automatically safe from it. The only thing that would protect a household that night was the blood of a lamb, painted across the doorframe. Where the blood was, death passed over. Where it wasn't, it didn't. That's not a throwaway detail. That's the whole Bible in miniature. Because centuries later, God would send his own firstborn son, the true lamb, and his blood would accomplish what the blood on those doorposts only pointed toward. At the cross, every false god and every power that holds people captive was finally, fully defeated. The God who beat the gods of Egypt was always heading toward a much bigger rescue. So bring it home. You probably don't worship a river or the sun, but every one of us builds our life on something we're quietly counting on to save us. Your career, your bank account, your reputation, your relationship, the plan you've got in your head for how life is supposed to go. And here's the mercy hidden inside this story. Sometimes God lets the thing you've been trusting fail you, not to crush you, but to free you. Because as long as your Nile is still flowing, you'll never look past it to the God who actually gives life. He loves you far too much to let you spend your one life bowing to something that was never able to save you. The plagues weren't only judgment on Egypt's gods. They were an invitation to stop trusting what can't hold you and turn to the one who can. So here's the whole thing in one line. The 10 plagues were God answering the question, who is the Lord? By toppling every false god Egypt trusted so that they and we would finally know him. On all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. There is a God who is bigger than anything you've ever been afraid of, and bigger than anything you've been trusting in his place. But we left one plague hanging, the last one, the night everything changed, when the only thing standing between a family and death was the blood of a lamb over a door. That's where we're going next, the Passover. If this helped you see a familiar story with new eyes, subscribe and come with us into the night that saved Israel.